All right. Who's the young? Is there any 18-year-olds here? Who just graduated high school last year? Anyone here? Okay. Do you guys know how? I would do a lot of intro, but I want to give as much time to actually talking about the topic. So I'm not going to tell you much about me. I usually joke that, in which I'm serious. I'm Mexican and I'm African American. My dad. You might think I'm not black. A lot of you guys are all international. Is anyone here from Texas? Yes. 3. Okay. I'm not black. My dad is from South Africa, which if you don't know, but you guys know probably better than Americans. There's a lot of white people in South Africa. So he's one of those white guys. And then my mom's Mexican. So me. So does anyone know, you guys said you graduated from high school. Do you all know how many of your friends statistically, if at least here in America, are leaving the church once they go into college? You would say a certain percentage. Any guess? Are you guys an interactive crowd?
Yeah. 17.
How?
17.
17?
17.
Did you cheat? You saw it? Okay, 7 out of 10 young adults. So 7 out of the 10 people in your school would have left the church. That's this slide right here. That, what is the guy's name right there? Luis. Can we go to the next slide? So this is Ed Stetzer's study. This was from 2013, December. And it showed that 7 out of 10 young adults drop out of church. So they get out of high school and then they leave the church. A lot of you guys, does anyone here feel called to be a youth pastor? A lot of y'all are youth ministry, right? You guys are working youth ministry. So 7 out of 10 of the American kids that you guys are working out with are going to leave the church statistically if this continues. And this isn't some new stat that started in 2013. This has always been the case for a couple decades since youth ministry has been going on. Now, here's the greatest irony about 7 out of 10 young adults leaving the church once they leave high school is this study I saw 1 month later is the next slide. And this is going to be close to home for what you guys are talking about. This is Barna research, and it's how evangelism is practiced across generations. And if you look, what generation is on the rise the most when it comes to evangelism, taking their faith seriously and sharing it? Millennials. Do y'all know that's young adults, 18 to 35-year-olds. So just to get a picture, everything else it says in those little words down there, it says every other generation older than us is either going static when it comes to taking their faith seriously and sharing it or on a rapid decline. So think about this, that 7 out of 10, 70%, like if the goal of church was to bore young adults so much that they left, like we get a passing grade, because 7 out of 10, we're getting a 70 on them leaving the church. But that's the exact opposite of church, is to keep them here and empower them to be the church. So the irony, though, is 70% of young adults are leaving the church, and on the way out, they're sharing their faith like crazy. Does that make sense? That they're so passionate that they leave the church and save everyone on the way out and while the door hits them. Like, that is a very opposite statistic. But I do think it's true, because a lot of the young adults I know are very, very passionate about the lost, certain causes, human trafficking, and people light up. These kind of we're an activist generation. I will say, since I'm speaking to a lot of young adults, a lot of us are slacktivists, which is young adults that on social media, they seem like they care a lot about certain causes, but in reality, if you ask them how much have you invested your time in this certain cause or this certain cause, they're like, nothing. I'll say, does anyone know the In It to End It movement? Anyone? Okay, so it's a movement that we have yet to end. We are in it. It has not been ended yet. But we put an X on your hand. But if you don't put an X on your calendar, you're just raising awareness. But awareness without action is useless. And if I'm honest, a lot of the older generation thinks that we're a lot of talk and we don't actually have much action. Like, we're a lot of talk. We will retweet the mess out of some causes. But when you say and look at the nonprofits and see who's actually serving, there's not many. And so for you guys are in youth ministry. Let me ask you a question, because I've never seen this not be the case. In your guys' youth ministry, is your biggest class the 9th graders? The most amount. 9th graders and seniors, which ones do you have more? 9th graders a lot, right? You guys work with the middle school pastors at all? Is that the same for 6th grade and 8th graders? Are 8th graders gone? Do they disappear? 8th graders, from my experience, they can't wait to get into high school. They're so excited to go and jump up to the next level of high school. Am I right? Okay, so what happens, why when they get now to 12th grade, even the kid, like you guys are working with some 9th grade freshmen, they're like punk kids, but some of them are like really, really solid. They're your go-to kid, like be like this kid, do what this kid does. They're growing up. And some of those kids in a couple years will be seniors and they're going to drop out of it and they'll just disappear. And this, I've never met a youth pastor ever that has ever said, no, our senior class is way bigger than our freshman class. So I don't get why are they all leaving. And I think this is what you guys have to do is you have to empower them to something bigger than just a bigger and better event. Like if we just try to do a better preaching or we just try to do better worship, then I don't think that's going to change things. I think a lot of churches, and you guys might see this more in America, that we are competing for greater worship or greater preaching. And what I love about your group is y'all are more competing, how can we be greater at the Great Commission? So I think if you would open the door to the Great Commission, which you guys have this missional mindset, then that's what young adults want. A lot of you guys have given up a full year of your life for mission. It's not the normal trend of what you guys have sacrificed to do, but that higher calling has caused you to do that. So here's the deal is, I think for young adults, what they need is an empowerment. Who is 19 here? Who's 18 here? Is anyone 18? What is your name? Hannah. Okay, Hannah. Is there a guy that's 19? Okay. Sasha. So if Sasha was to join, here's what I say to pastors, because they say, oh, we give our young adults, we give our youth chances to serve and stuff like this. But here's the deal. And here in America, and this is going to hit almost all y'all's churches, if Sasha wanted to join the Army, I don't know if, I think you can join the Army even if you're from another country. It's very sweet of you to fight for us. So if you wanted to join the Army, Sasha at 19 years old could be entrusted with the lethal weapon that could kill people and to represent this country in another country. But if he was to join a nonprofit, let's say overseas that does something with orphanages, he could be entrusted with all these kids' souls in some type of sports program. But a lot of you guys are in American churches. If Sasha or some 19-year-old kid came up to the pastor and said, I want to serve, the pastor's going to say to him, okay, this is what you can do. You can be on our parking team. You can hand out pamphlets, but we'll even let you smile and greet them at the door as you hold it open. You can work with little babies and you can nanny them. Like these are, then remember we're talking about the Great Commission. And then we say, this is how you can do the Great Commission. You're reading about Paul and you're reading about Peter, you're reading about the disciples living these passionate lives and dying on the cross. And how you're going to get there is by doing that parking team like so faithfully that one day they're going to persecute you that you want to kill you. That's not going to happen. So I think there's a disconnect where we're like, okay, I am so passionate about Jesus and I'm so passionate about people, and the only thing that the church is really letting me do and entrust me with is really, really low-level leadership. So I think what I tell adults a lot, and you guys, what I will say is it's got to be humility. Like in the end, we have not earned any type of position. I liken us as the young adults. I'm 24, if I haven't said that yet. I liken us a lot to Peter. We are very, very passionate, and when we decide something, we do it. But here's the thing: is cutting someone's ear off. That's the worst passionate way to try to share the gospel with someone. Like that method doesn't work. It was passionate, and he was like trying to defend the faith, and he was that guy. But cutting his ear off didn't work. Now, after humility and starting to be consistent and serving, that Peter is the same guy that shared the gospel and saved 3,000 people. So it's got to be both and. Like you don't see a general that's serving by making the plans in an army also be the guy that they send on the front lines. It's got to be this both and. But we also have to respect the wisdom of this is the way in which they have decided to go. So it's this. We'll never have any type of leadership or any type of influence in the church until there is a humble posture of, you have done so much to get us here. How can I help? And unless I am able to help in a way that I see impact, because here's the thing is I think that a lot of older generation, they're freaking out. Like, they're like, where are all the young people going? They're all leaving. This is denominational. It's not, every denomination is on a rapid decline when it comes to young adults. And the older people are losing more hair than they've already lost. Like, they're freaking out. And I say, you think that the young adults are abandoning the church, but I think in a way you guys have abandoned the mission. Because it's kind of like cursive is, you guys said when we were young, and you guys, I'm sure, say this to your youth in your church, it's like, go into your schools and be passionate and share your faith, and you're training them to reach their youth in their schools, right? Yes. You're teaching them to be a light in the world in their schools, right? And then the reality is we graduate and go into college, and especially when we go into the workforce, and we realize you guys don't even do that. Like, you volunteer and you're like, you got to be a light, you got to be passionate, you got to share your faith, you got to be like all these things. And then you kind of grow up and you realize no one does that actually. The adults are the worst at doing that. It shows it. This is not me in my conjecture. This is statistically who's passionately, boldly living in the workforce like that. And that's why I say it's like cursive. When we were young, at least here in America, they act like cursive's so important. Oh, you got to learn this. It's so important. When you grow up, it's so important. And then you grow up and you're like, I don't ever use this, ever. Like, I have never done anything more than sign my name. And I swear, even if I wanted to, I could just do that. No one even checks it. And they put all this, and I'm like, man, that's a waste of my time. Or at least, it's like, why did we put so much emphasis on this? But I think what you guys can do is invite them into more leadership. So how am I doing on time? Do you guys think like 10 minutes? Yeah, 10 minutes. Okay. So what can that look like is, I know you guys do a lot of discipleship. I'm going to give you all two like practical tips on what can we do. That's why millennials, I think they want to be empowered. They want to be a part of the Great Commission. They want, I think when they graduate, when they go into big church, which even grown adults called it big church, it really should be big church. As in, not just how can I serve the church that I am locally in, but how can I be a part of the big church, the global big church? Because if the ceiling is one church, I don't know if y'all know, just in Dallas, Fort Worth, there's 4,800 churches. That's one city in America. There's a big church, and it's not just one church. And any church that would try to only claim to be the church, Jesus promised that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. And that's not just one church, that's the big church. So when we decide, I'm going to be so devoted and so committed, almost idolatry towards this church, and any other church that does it a different way, or does this or does that, is wrong, or I'm going to make fun of them or talk bad about them, or in my heart be arrogant towards them like I'm better. That's not what God said, because he did not promise any church. He promised the church. And the power of that is we limit ourselves when we don't do that. But when we believe in the church and we expand it from young adult youth ministry, then turns into the big church, like, hey, the church is now, you can drive now, you have money now, you can make decisions without your parents. How can you serve the big church? That's how, but also, I mean, I'm not saying leave your church, be involved, but don't be critical. Be aware of how can I serve in the big church. And your mission field is not just opportunities, because look at, these are a lot of the opportunities, and I've taken pictures of different churches in Dallas where it says service opportunities, and I used to show them, but you can tell which churches they are, so it looks really bad, is the service opportunities a lot of times, and don't think about the opportunities you're giving your youth. Parking team, greeting, nannying. What are the other opportunities y'all see? Like, setup team, break down and tear, like all these teams. When do these teams assimilate? When do they come together? Sunday morning. All opportunities. And who do they serve? Are these serving the lost people of Dallas, or are these serving Christians? This is not service. Jesus did 41 miracles in the Gospels. Do you know how many were in the church or the temple? 2. Of 41 miracles, his gifting and his service was not even necessarily in the building. It was outside of it. Almost like he was saying, more important than just going to an event and going to church was being the church. That's what's going to change things. So if all these are self-serving, even our service, which is supposed to be outward, becomes inward and self-seeking. So give your young people chances to serve outside. Make it the big church and make it the city. the city in which they are. Acts 17:26 says that we are placed here specifically at this time and this dwelling place so that we could, quote unquote, help others feel their way to God. And then it says, and they're not even that far, actually, because we're not far. We're in the city, and God, we are the temple. I always joke that hipsters get, a lot of Christians get tattoos now, and older people will always say like, hey, Sonny, or hey, your body's a temple. You shouldn't do that. Like, or you should work out more. Your body's a temple. I read it I don't think that Paul was in his room thinking like, okay, how am I going to get these hipster Christians in the modern 20th century not to get tattoos? Oh, I'll say something poetic like your body is a temple. The way I really think it is when we should read it, it might be crazy, is instead of reading it like that means don't get tattoos, is I read it like your body's a temple. That's all it means. Like, I am the dwelling place of God. When Adam and Eve were there, it was God and man. Then sin separated, and God was for man. And he showed them this is the way in which to go, even giving clouds and stuff and leaders to say God for man. And then whenever Jesus came, what does Emmanuel mean? God with us. So it went from God and man, God for man, God is man, to now God is in us, God within us, Christ in me, the hope of glory. You're being built as a dwelling place for God. God is in us. So how do we empower young adults to do that is, I think a big piece, and some people might belittle this, I think this is huge. Jesus was about giving new names. A lot of us, when youth come up or young adults finally do get a position, they get some type of position like an intern. Like, hey, you can be an intern. You can be I'm going to be honest, and this is my thing, but I do think that this is a big deal, is give your young people a name, a title in which they'll be proud to take. Not one that's like, oh, I'm just this. It's so degrading. And the reason why we do that is because, well, let's see if he's humble enough to do that position. And then after a couple years of showing his humility, I'll give him a position that actually matters. That's why they're leaving the church, is because their position doesn't matter. They're not proud of their position in the church at all. And by the time they do show all the humility, which, by the way, Jesus didn't pick a lot of people with humility. They were arguing for the left hand and the right hand of the Father, so much that James and John's mom freaking argues for the left hand and the right hand of the Father. So bad that every one of the disciples getting mad that their mom's arguing for the left. They all want it. That's not humility. That's not at all. And if you want to talk about being good at what they do, like I said, cutting off ears is not being good at what you do. He picked guys that were called and committed. And a lot of the guys that are like, man, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, are like, hey, stop. Like, your time will come, your time will come, your time will come. Hey, the world is the exact opposite. I'll say the world is preaching the right message, and it's the wrong place. The world does not say your time is coming. The world says your time is right now. YOLO, live right now. You only live once. That is the right message. Right now, Jesus has so much urgency. Jesus had too much urgency to say, I'm going to wait 3 years until I see these guys are humble enough so I can take them as my disciples. There's not enough time to do that. The gospel is too urgent for us to wait for that. So if the wrong message is your time, like the church says your time is later, but this is the right place. What if the church could be the right place with the right message? Your time is now, and I will disciple you and take you on. And I'll give you a name you do like. Because Jesus was all about new names. He took guys that, like Peter, and says, I'm going to call you Rock now. Like, he gave new names. Because think about this. This is what 1 Corinthians 4:1 says. This is one of my favorite verses when it comes to just being a Christian. We never use this title. We always say Christian or Christ follower. 1 Corinthians 4:1 says, I'm going to write this down just so y'all... There's one thing I used this whiteboard for, it was this. First Corinthians 4:1, steward of the mysteries of God. So, 1 Corinthians 4:1 says that you should be regarded, this is Paul saying, you should be regarded as a follower of Christ and the steward of the mysteries of God. So a follower of Christ, if you're not fishing, you're not following. I think you guys get that if there's not people that you are like proactively seeking out to bring to Christ, then you're not following him. You're not fishing. He came to make us fishers of men. And if you never, and you've been a Christian for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you don't have one person that you've intentionally said, this is who I've been called to. Because Jesus says, As the Father has sent me, I have sent you. Most of us don't even know and have not identified, to who have I been sent? What people, what person? It's vague. It's like, oh, well, if I ask Christians, do you love people? You love God? Yes. Do you love people? Yes. They'll say, I love people. I've never met a Christian that doesn't say they love people. But what they mean is, I'm nicer to people. I tip better. I'm nicer. I smile more. I have a better attitude. I don't cuss as much. I don't get as mad on the highway. That's not what Christians do. Atheists can do that. It's who have you been sent to share the gospel? So if you're not fishing, you're not following, you're not a Christ follower. But you should also be regarded as, well, this is one of the most undervalued titles that I never see someone use that should be up there. Stewards of the mysteries of God. You should be regarded as that. That doesn't mean that you say you are one. That means non-Christians know you are one. So they would come to you because they know that you know about the mysteries of God. They don't know about God, but you steward the mysteries of God. And what that practically could look like, and what this matters to young adults, is this. If you meet me, you're like, oh, Grant, what do you do? I might say, I'm a speaker. I'm a mission leader. Okay, that's cool. You're young. That's kind of cool. Like, you're doing a good job. If you meet Rick Perry, do y'all know who that is? Okay, you meet Bono. He's international. Y'all know who that is? Okay, you meet Bono. What do you do? I'm a musician. Oh, a very famous musician. Okay, wow, that's a big deal. Do you guys know who Barack Obama is? Yes? Okay. If you meet the president and I say, Barack Obama, what do you do? And he says, I am the president of the United States. I'm like, wow, that's one of the most influential countries in the world. That's a really big deal. I can't dress like this when I go to the White House to meet Obama. I have got to dress up. This is a big deal. It's a big title. If Barack Obama was to turn to you as a Christian and say, what do you do? Because that's what matters. When you're in high school, it's like, hey, where do you want to go to college? Oh, or what sport do you play? When you're in college, it's like, what are you majoring in? When you grow up and you get a job, or you get out of college, you get defined by, what do you do? That's what it asks. Where do you work? Your title matters. It's the second question to who you are is, what do you do? And when Barack Obama says to you, what do you do? As Christians, we should be able to say to him, Barack, that's cute that you're the president of the United States, but I'm a freaking steward of the mysteries of God. That's what I do. Like, that is a title, a big title, a title that would give me pride to say. And if we say that's Paul, what we should regard ourselves as, and we go to young adults and youth and say, hey, we're going to regard you as just an intern. You're just an assistant, blah, 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 to the assistant intern. You're only this. Christians should never have to say, I'm just. We are stewarding the mysteries of God. So give your youth and your young adults an ownership role. And I'll end on this. This is why ownership and title matters is they'll never own the church until we make them own it. Because if you're a member, which most people, and especially youth and young adults, treat the church as a member. If you're just a member of a church, let's say, is anyone a member of a gym? Workout? Okay, this guy works out. Spiritually healthy and not physically healthy. Okay. So if you're a member of LA Fitness and he goes in and they see a broken machine, he's going to say, oh crap, like I need to tell the manager, this is my favorite machine. I want to use this machine so that the manager will fix it. But if he's not a member but an owner, a title that I own this is who I am, this is my place. If he owns it and he sees the broken machine, he's going to go up to it and say, I need to fix this. Like, this is my place. This can't. He's going to take responsibility. And until you give youth and young adults a position that owns something, they're not going to own it. And they're going 7 out of 10 to leave the church because they never owned it. They never owned their faith. They never owned the church. And they check out. That's it. So I think one of my questions, and I'm going to bring, Rob, you can come up to do the question. I'm just going to bring up Rob. Thank you guys for letting me speak. We'll be over here to answer any questions.